AI number 132, Part 1, Improved AI Detection, by Zvi Moshowitz, September 4th, 2025. One result of going on vacation was that I wasn't able to spin events off into focused posts this week, so I'm going to fall back on splitting the weekly instead, plus some reserving a few subtopics for later posts, including AI craziness. The Tim Hua post on this is excellent. Some new OpenAI largely policy-related shenanigans, and the continuing craziness of some people who should very much know better confidently saying that we are not going to hit AGI anytime soon, plus some odds and ends including dead internet theory. That still leaves tons of other stuff. Table of contents. 1. Language models offer mundane utility. How much improvement have we seen? 2. Language models don't offer mundane utility. Writing taste remains elusive. 3. On your marks. Opus 4.1 on Meteor Graph, Werewolf, WeirdML, Flash Fiction. 4. Choose your fighter. The right way to use the right fighter and a long tail. 5. Fun with media generation. Justine Moore's slate of AI creative tools. 6. Deepfake Town and Botpocalypse soon. Maybe AI detectors work after all? 7. Don't be evil. Goonbots are one thing, but at some point you draw the line. 8. They took our jobs. A second finding suggests junior hiring is suffering. 9. School days. What do you need to learn in order to be able to learn from AIs? 10. The art of the jailbreak. Prompt engineering game Gandalf. 11. Overcoming bias. AIs find center-left think tanks superior. AEI reports. 12. Get involved. MATS 9.0, AIGs needs Canadian dollars, Anthropic Futures Form. 13. Introducing Grok Code Fast 1, Instalily, Brave Leo AI Browser. 14. Unprompted attention. OpenAI offers a real-time prompting guide. 15. In other AI news, Google survives its antitrust case. Goog plus 9%. 16. Show me the money. Anthropic raises $13 billion at $183 billion. Meta might need help. Language models offer mundane utility. How much have LLMs improved for practical purposes in the last year? Opinions are split, but consensus is a little above somewhat better.
Nate Silver. If you use LLMs like ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, or Grok regularly, how would you rate their overall performance on tasks you routinely use them for, as compared to approximately 1 year ago? Considerably better, 31.7%. Somewhat better, 33%. About the same, or worse, 17.6%. Don't use LLMs much, 17.7%.
Peter Wildford. People voting don't use LLMs much. I think you're missing out, but I understand. People voting about the same or worse are idiots.
To me, the answer is very clearly considerably better, to the point that about half my uses wouldn't have been worth bothering with a year ago, and to the extent I'm considering coding it is way better. You need to be doing either very shallow things or deeply weird things, deeply weird as in you'd still want Opus 3, to get about the same. Men use LLMs more than women, although the gap is not that large, with women being 42% of ChatGPT, 42% of Perplexity, and 31% of Claude. On smartphones, the gap is much larger, with women only being 27% of ChatGPT application downloads. The result holds across countries. One cause is women reported being worried they would be penalized for AI usage, which is sometimes the case depending on how you use it. Language models don't offer mundane utility. This one time the rumors of a model suddenly getting worse were true. There was a 9-hour period where Claude Opus quality was accidentally degraded by a rollout of the interface stack. The change has now been rolled back, and quality has recovered.
Davidad, may I please remind all inference kernel engineers that floating-point arithmetic is not associative or distributive.
Accelerate harder. Secret model nerfing paranoia will never recover from this.
Taco Bell's AI drive-thru offering, like its menu, seems to have been half-baked.
BBC. Taco Bell is rethinking its use of artificial intelligence AI to power drive-through restaurants in the US after comical videos of the tech making mistakes were viewed millions of times. In one clip, a customer seemingly crashed the system by ordering 18,000 water cups, while in another, a person got increasingly angry as the AI repeatedly asked him to add more drinks to his order. Since 2023, the fast food chain has introduced the technology at over 500 locations in the US, with the aim of reducing mistakes and speeding up orders. But the AI seems to have served up the complete opposite. Last year, McDonald's withdrew AI from its own drive-thrus as the tech misinterpreted customer orders, resulting in one person getting bacon added to their ice cream in error and another having hundreds of dollars worth of chicken nuggets mistakenly added to their order.
This seems very obviously a skill issue on multiple fronts. The technology can totally handle this, especially given a human can step in at any time if there is an issue. There are only so many ways for things to go wrong, and the errors most often cited would not survive simple error checks such as, if you want over $100 of stuff, a human looks at the request and maybe talks to you first, or if you are considering adding bacon to someone's ice cream, maybe don't do that. This feature for Twitter would be super doable, but we're not yet doing it.
Ashok Elaswamy, would be cool to just chat with the X algorithm like, don't show me any of Swift-Kelsey engagement things, and it just cleans up the feed.
Elon Musk and 100 points emoji.
We can do an 80-20 on this if we restrict the AI role to negative selection. The existing feed generates a set of candidate posts, or you start with lists and chronological feeds the way us sane people do it, and the AI's job is to filter this pool. That's easy. We could either build that directly into Twitter via Grok, or you could give reasonably priced access to the API, or a way to call a filter, and we could vibe code the rest within a day and iterate, which would be even better. The only thing stopping this from happening is Twitter putting up active barriers to alternative modes of site interaction and not offering their own version. This is easy enough that you could plausibly do the operation through an AI agent controlling a browser if it came to that, and indeed it seems worthwhile to attempt this at some point for a second tier of potential posts. Getting models to have writing taste remains a struggle. At least by my eyes, even when they have relatively good taste, they all reliably have terrible taste. And even the samples people say are good are not good. Why?
Jack Morris, if I ran a first-party model company, I'd hire hundreds of humanities folks to make subtle data edits to improve model feel. Someone needs to be that deep in the RLHF data, agonizing over every verb choice, every exclamation, every semicolon.
Eliezer Yudkowsky, none of the AI executives have sufficiently good taste in writing to hire the correct people to improve AI writing.
0.005 seconds. This is absolutely rune slander, and I will not stand for it.
Hiring people with good taste seems hard. It does not seem impossible insofar as there are some difficult-to-fake signals of at least reasonable taste, and you could fall back on those. The problem is that the people have terrible taste. Really no good. Very bad taste. As confirmed every time we do a comparison that says GPT 4.5 is preferred over Emily Dickinson and Walt Whitman or whatnot. Are you actually going to maximize for elite taste over the terrible taste of users, and do so sufficiently robustly to overcome all your other forms of feedback? I don't know that you could, or if you could, that you would even want to. Note that I see why Andy sees a conflict below. But there is no contradiction here as per the counter-argument.
Andy Maisley. I don't think it makes sense to believe both. AI is such a terrible generic writer that it makes every document it touches worse to read. And AI models are so compelling to talk to that they're driving people insane and are irresponsible to give to the public.
Great counterpoint.
Flygeet. Well, here's what I believe. AI isn't very good at the type of writing I'm looking for / care about, producing genuinely good / meaningful literature, for example. And there are groups of people for whom 24/7 unfettered access to fawning text therapy is dangerous.
Eliezer Yudkowsky, Terrible writing can go hand in hand with relentless flattery from an entity that feels authoritative and safe.
There are many such human cases of this as well. On your marks, Claude Opus 4.1 joins the METEOR graph, 30% beyond Opus 4 and in second place behind GPT-5, although within margin of error.
Image. A meter chart plots AI model releases over time against their 50% time horizon, task length at 50% success, showing a steep upward trend with a doubling time of about 202 days. R² equals 0.98. Points with error bars for models from GPT-2 through GPT-5 and Claude Opus 4/4.1 place Opus 4.1 near the top at roughly 1 hour 45 minutes, with y-axis examples ranging from answering a question, approximately 15s, to training an adversarially robust image model, approximately 4h.
GPT-OSS 120b ran into a lot of setup issues. In the comments, Havard clarifies that he was previously attempting to use OpenRouter, but his attempts to specify high thinking were failing silently. So it's plausible that most evaluations and tests of the model were not tried at high reasoning, despite that still being very cheap to run. This is a real and important constraint on actually using them. If those doing evaluations get it wrong, then would-be users will get it wrong too. The ecosystem needs to make this easier, but when you get it right, it turns out maybe GPT-OSS 120 is kind of good in at least some ways.
The Tiny Corp. It's actually pretty cool that OpenAI released the SOTA open source model. Can confirm GPT-OSS 120b is good and that it runs great on a TinyBox Green v2.
Haverdeal, GPT-OSS 120b high, scores 48.9% on WeirdML, beating the second-best open model R10528 by 8 PCT points. It is almost at the level of O4 Mini or GPT-5 Mini, but at a fraction of the cost. These results, including GPT-OSS 20b high at 39.8%, obtained by running the models locally, Ollama, show a large improvement of the previous results I got running through OpenRouter with, presumably medium reasoning effort, illustrating how important reasoning is in this benchmark. These runs are part of a small local model division of WeirdML that is in the works. As I ran this locally, the costs are just extrapolated based on the token count and the price I got on OpenRouter. With the surprisingly high score from GPT-OSS 120b high, much of the gap between the open and closed models on WeirdML is now gone. However, the leading closed lab deciding to release an open model trained on their superior stack has a different feel to it than the open source community, e.g. Meta or DeepSeek, closing the gap. R2, whenever it comes, or QN4 will be interesting to follow, as will the new Meta Superintelligence team, and whether they will continue to open source their models.
Image, a chart titled WeirdML, Release Date versus Accuracy, plots average max accuracy across 19 tasks over time, with step curves for the green closed frontier and blue open frontier and many labeled model dots. It highlights a sharp mid-2025 jump in the open frontier around GPT-OSS 120b high, near the approximately 0.53 level, while the top closed frontier points, e.g. O3 Pro 2025 0610 GPT-5, sit slightly higher around approximately 0.56 alongside models like Claude, Gemini, Qwen, Llama, Grok, and DeepSeek.
That's a rather large jump in the blue line there for GPT-OSS 120b. Werewolf Benchmark pits the models against each other for simplified games of werewolf, with 2 werewolves and 4 villagers, a witch and a seer.
Image. An infographic summarizes the werewolf game. Win conditions and roles. 2 werewolves, 4 villagers, a witch with heal/kill potions, a seer who inspects, and a mayor who breaks ties. It details the cycle. Night phase where wolves choose a target, the witch may act, and the seer learns a role. Day phase with a public announcement, debate, voting, and elimination.
The best models consistently win. These were the 7 models extensively tested, so Claude wasn't involved, presumably due to cost.
Image. A leaderboard table ranks 7 AI models by ELO rating for a werewolf game benchmark, showing columns for model ELO, ELO W as wolf, ELO V as villager, win rate, and matches, all 60. GPT-5 leads with 1492 ELO and a 96.7% win rate, followed by Gemini 2.5 Pro, 1261 ELO, 63.3%, and Gemini 2.5 Flash, 1188 ELO, 51.7%, while GPT OSS 120B ranks last, 980 ELO, 15.0%. Image, bar chart titled, Day 1 Wolf Eliminated, showing the percentage of games where a wolf is eliminated on day 1 when the model plays Villager. Results, GPT-5, 100%, Gemini 2.5 Pro, 70%, Qwen 3, 235B, Instruct 53.3%, Gemini 2.5 Flash 50%, GPT-5 Mini 44.8%, Kimi K2 Instruct 23.3%, and GPT OSS 120B 13.3%.
GPT-5 gets top marks for flash fiction style and diversity, including being the only study to sometimes use present tense, in a new test from Lech Mazur. There's lots more detail in the thread.
Image, a bar chart compares stylistic diversity by LLM using weighted Gower mean pairwise distance. GPT-5 0.222 ranks highest, followed by GLM-4 5 0.207, and Claude Opus 4.1 0.205, while the lowest scores are GPT OSS 120B 0.174, Cohere Command A 0.180, and Llama 4 Maverick 0.185.
Pliny experimented with Grok Code Fast and Cursor since it was briefly free. Many exploit scripts and other fun stuff resulted quickly. I presume the same would have happened with the usual suspects. A new math benchmark looks at questions that stump at least one active model. GPT-5 leads with 43%, then DeepSeek v3.1 and Grok 4 with 34%. Gemini 2.5 Pro is at 29%, and Opus 4.1 only scores 15%. Choose your fighter. If you use Gemini for something other than images, a reminder to always use it in AI Studio, never in the Gemini app if you need high performance. Quality in AI Studio is much higher. If you use GPT-5, of course, only use the router if you need very basic stuff.
Near. GPT-5 router gives me results equivalent to a 1995 Markov chain bot. If my responses were not like 500 tokens per second, I could at least be fooled that it is doing thinking. But I am not going to use this router ever again after my last few times. I'm happy to pay hundreds a month for the best models in the world, but there is no point to this for a power user. The other frustrating part is all of the optimizations done for search, because I can tell there is not actually any search being done. If I wanted a 2023 YouTube and Reddit scrape by low-dim cosine similarity, then I'd go back to Google dorking.
I do have some narrow use cases where I've found GPT-5 Auto is the right tool. An ode to Claude Code called Entering the DOS Era of AI.
Nikunj Korthari. Here's what Cursor assumes. You want to code. Replit, you want to ship. But Claude Code starts somewhere else entirely. It assumes you have a problem. Yes, the terminal looks technical because it is. But when you only need to explain problems, not understand solutions, everything shifts. Cloud intelligence meets complete local access. Your machine, GitHub, databases, system internals. One conversation touching everything the terminal can reach. Intent becomes execution. No apps between you and what you want built.
Aidan McLaughlin, OpenAI. Claude Code will go next to ChatGPT in the history textbooks. Brilliant form factor, training decisions, ease of use. I have immense respect for Anthropic's vision. I love my GPT-5 High, but Anthropic obviously pioneered this product category and, as much ink as I see spilled on how good Claude Code/Code Keely are, I don't see enough on how hard Anthropic cooked releasing Gene Zero.
As in, the command line might be ugly, but it works, it gets the job done, lets you do whatever you want. This was the best case so far that I should stop stalling and actually start using Claude Code, which I will, as soon as I catch up and have a spare moment. And this time, I mean it.
Brian Armstrong. Approximately 40% of daily code written at Coinbase is AI-generated. I want to get it to less than 50% by October. Obviously, it needs to be reviewed and understood, and not all areas of the business can use AI-generated code. But we should be using it responsibly as much as we possibly can.
Rune. We need to train a codex that deletes code.
Oh, we can get Codex or Claude Code to delete code up to and including all your code, including without you asking them to do it. But yes, something that does more intelligent cleanup would be great. Anthropic's pricing and limits got you down? GLM offers a coding plan for Claude Code. They're priced cheap at $3 per month for 3 times usage of Claude Pro or $15 per month for 3 times the usage of Claude Max.
Z.AI. To test models' performance on Claude Code, we ran GLM 4.5 against Claude Sonnet 4 and other open-source models on 52 practical programming tasks. While GLM 4.5 demonstrated strong performance against top open-source models, it secured a 40.4% win rate against Claude Sonnet 4.
Image. A horizontal stacked bar chart titled CC Bench, GLM 4.5's experience with agentic coding and real-world development scenarios, compares GLM 4.5 against 4 models using win, blue, tie, black, and lose, green segments. The win/tie/lose rates are 51.9/11.5/36.6 versus DeepSeek v3.1, 80.8/7.7/11.5 versus Qwen 3 Coder, 53.9/17.3/28.8 versus Kimi K2, and 40.4/9.6/50.0 versus Claude Sonnet 4.
I give Z.AI a lot of credit for calling this a 40% win rate, when I'd call it 44% given the 9.6% rate of ties. It makes me trust their results a lot more, including the similar size win against DeepSeek v3.1. It still is not a great result. Pairwise evaluations tend to be noisy, and Opus 4.1 is substantially ahead of Opus 4 on agentic coding, which in turn is ahead of Sonnet 4. In general, my advice is to pay up for the best coding tools for your purposes, whichever tools you believe they are, given the value of better coding. Right now that means either Claude or GPT-5, or possibly Gemini 2.5 Pro. But yeah, if you were previously spending hundreds a month, for some people, those savings matter. A16Z's Olivia Moore and Daisy Zhao offer the 5th edition of their report on the top 100 Gen AI consumer apps.
Image. A 2-panel infographic ranks the top 50 Gen AI web products by unique monthly visits and the top 50 Gen AI mobile apps by monthly active users, showing logos and numbered lists. ChatGPT is number 1 on both, with Gemini, DeepSeek, Grok, Character.ai, Perplexity, Claude, and various editing and companion-style apps also prominent.
Notice how many involve companions or spicy chat.
Image. A chart titled The Top 50 Gen AI Web Products by Unique Monthly Visits ranks sites 1 to 50 with logos, sourced from SimilarWeb, August 2025, and branded A16Z Consumer. It's led by ChatGPT, Gemini, and DeepSeek, includes names like Grok, Character.ai, Perplexity, Claude, Midjourney, and Qwen, and highlights several companion/chat offerings such as SpicyChat.ai, Crush.on.ai, Candy.ai, JuicyChat, and Joy.
My guess is that a lot of why NSFW is doing relatively well is that the threshold for good enough in NSFW is a lot lower than the threshold in many other places. Think of this as similar to the way that porn plots are much lower intelligence than non-porn plots. Thus, if you're offering a free app, you have a better shot with NSFW. You know it's hard to keep up when I look at these lists, and out of 100 items listed, since apps and web are distinct, there are 23 web products and 35 apps that I do not recognize enough to know what they are, although about half of them are pretty obvious from their names. Gemini is growing fast, although AI Studio, Notebook, and Labs seem stagnant recently.
Image. A line chart titled Google AI Properties Traffic tracks monthly unique visits from Feb to June 2025 for 4 products: Gemini, Magenta, AI Studio, Red, Notebook LM, Purple, and Google Labs, Green. Gemini climbs steeply to lead by June. Google Labs shows a brief spike then drops. Notebook LM rises through May before collapsing in June, and AI Studio stays comparatively low and flat throughout.
Some other highlights. 1. Grok is mostly an app product and holding steady around 20 million active monthly users there. Meta is a flop, Perplexity is growing. Claude is flat on mobile but growing on web. Claude users are wise indeed, but also they need a better app. 2. DeepSeek rapidly got to 600 million monthly web visits after R1's release, but use peaked by February and is slowly declining, now under 400 million, with V3 and V3.1 not visible. We'll see if R2 causes another spike. The app peaked later, in May, and there it is, only down 22% so far from peak. 3. China has 3 companies in the top 20 that mostly get traffic from China, where they are shielded from American competition. Fun with media generation. Justin Moore gives us a presentation on the state of play for AI creative tools. Nothing surprising, but details are always good. 1. Image creation has a lot of solid choices. She mentions Midjourney, GPT Image, and Krea 1. 2. Google has the edge for now on image editing. 3. Video generation has different models with different strengths, so you run Veo but also others and compare. 4. Video editing is rough, but she mentions Runway Aleph for minor swaps. 5. Genie 3 from Google DeepMind has the lead in 3D world generation, but for now it looks mainly useful for prospective model training, not for creatives. 6. 11 Labs remains default for speech generation. 7. 11 Labs has a commercially safe music model, others have other edges. Things are constantly changing, so if you're actually creating, you'll want to try a wide variety of tools and compare results, pretty much no matter what you're trying to do. Deepfake Town and Botpocalypse soon. How accurate are AI writing detectors? Brian Jabarian and Alex Emas put 4 to the test. Roberta tested as useless, but Pangram, Originality, and GPT-0 all had low, less than 2.5% or better across the board, usually less than 1%, false positive rates on pre-LLM text passages, at settings that also had acceptable false negative rates from straightforward LLM outputs across GPT 4.1, Claude Opus 4, Claude Sonnet 4, and Gemini 2.0 Flash. Pangram especially impressed, including on small snippets, whereas GPT-0 and Originality collapsed without enough context. I'd want to see this replicated, but this is representing that non-adversarial AI writing detection is a solved problem. If no one is trying to hide that the AI text is AI text, and text is known to be either fully human or fully AI, you can very reliably detect what text is and is not AI. Brian also claims that humanizers like Stealth GPT do not fool Pangram. So if you want to mask your AI writing, you're going to have to do more work, which plausibly means there isn't a problem anymore. Honglin Bao tried GPT-0 and Zero GPT and reports their findings here, finding that when tested on texts where humans disclosed AI use, those detectors failed. It would not be that surprising these days if it turned out that the reason everyone thinks AI detectors don't work is that all the popular ones don't work, but others do. But again, I wouldn't trust this without verification. How bad is it over at LinkedIn? I hear it's pretty bad.
Peter Wildford. There needs to be an option for this person uncritically posts AI slop that makes absolutely 0 sense if you think about it for more than 10 seconds. And then these people need to be rounded up by LinkedIn and hurled directly into the sun.
Image. A pop-up window titled "Don't Want to See This" asks why the user doesn't want to see a post, with "I'm not interested in the author" selected and "It's something else" unselected. It also shows a Report This Post link and a blue Submit button, noting you can report policy violations.
Gurgly Orosh. Interesting observation from an Eng manager. As soon as I know some text is AI-generated, I lose all interest in reading it. For performance reviews, I asked people to either not use AI or, if they must, just write down the prompt so I don't need to go through the word salad. Okay, I can see why engineers would not share the prompt.
Hank Yeomans, prompt. You are an amazing 10x engineer who is having their performance review. Write a concise self-review of my sheer awesomeness and high impact. Be sure to detail that I should be promoted immediately, but say it at an executive level.
Juan Gomez.
The problem is not whether using AI or not, but how useful engineers find the performance reviews. Self-evaluation equals waste of time. 360 evaluations equals 90% waste of time. Pay raises and promotions are decided in rooms where this information is not useful.
If someone is tempted to use AI on a high-stakes document, consider that something likely went horribly wrong prior to AI becoming involved. Don't be evil.
Yishan. People ask me why I invested in an AI horoscope company. They're like, it's just some slop AI horoscope. My reply is, do you have any idea how many women are into horoscopes and astrology, and it'll run on your phone and know you intimately and help you live your life? AI is not just male sci-fi tech. Men thought it would be sex robots, but it turned out to be AI boyfriends. The AI longhouse is coming for you, and none of you are ready.
Tracing Woods. People ask me why I invested in the Torment Nexus from the classic sci-fi novel Don't Invest in the Torment Nexus. My reply is, do you have any idea how profitable the Torment Nexus will be? The Torment Nexus is coming for you, and none of you are ready.
Seriously, don't be evil. I don't care if there's great money in evil. I don't care if your failing to do evil means someone else will do evil instead. Don't be evil. They took our jobs.
Ethan Mollick. A second paper also finds generative AI is reducing the number of junior people hired, while not impacting senior roles. This one compares firms across industries who have hired for at least one AI project versus those that have not. Firms using AI were hiring fewer juniors.
Image. A line chart titled Juniors versus Seniors plots log size by quarter from 2015 to 2025, with juniors in red and seniors in blue, each with shaded confidence bands. Seniors trend upward throughout and accelerate after around 2022 to 2023, while juniors stay flat and then decline noticeably after 2023.
Sayed Mahdi Hosseini, author. We identify adoption from job postings explicitly recruiting AI integrators, e.g., we need someone to put Gen AI in our workflow. A firm is an adopter if it posts greater than or equal to one such role. We find approximately 10.6K adopting firms, approximately 3.7%, with a sharp takeoff beginning in 2023 Q1. In the aggregate, before 2022, juniors and seniors move in lockstep. Starting mid-2022, seniors keep rising while juniors flatten, then decline.
Image. A time series chart, 2015 to 2025, shows 3 lines. Total, gray, juniors, red, and seniors, light blue, on a 0 to 0.6 scale. All 3 rise together until around 2022. Afterward, seniors continue climbing to about 0.6. Total plateaus in the mid-0.4s, and juniors peak around 2023, then trend downward into 2025.
Thus, this presumably does represent a net decline in jobs versus expected baseline, although one must beware selection and survival effects on the corporations.
Sayed Mahdi Hosseini. We then estimate a diff and diff specification using our measure of AI adoption. The results show flat pre-trends for juniors through 2022 Q4. From 2023 Q1, junior EMP at adopters falls about 7.7%, while seniors continue their pre-existing rise. Also, we implement a triple difference design, comparing juniors versus seniors within the same firm and quarter, and find the same patterns. Relative junior employment at adopters drops by approximately 12% post-2023 Q1. Is this about separations or hiring? Our data allows us to answer this question. The decline comes almost entirely from reduced hiring, not layoffs. After 2023 Q1, adopters hire 3.7 fewer juniors per quarter. Separations edge down slightly, promotions of incumbent juniors rise. This isn't only an IT story. The largest cuts in junior hiring occur in wholesale/retail, approximately 40% versus baseline. Information and professional services also see notable but smaller declines. Senior hiring is flat or slightly positive. We also look at education. Using an LLM to tier schools, 1 equals elite, 5 equals lowest, we find a U shape. the steepest declines is coming from juniors from Tier 2 to 3 schools. Tiers 1 and 4 are smaller. Tier 5 is near zero.
This seems to be the pattern. There are not yet many firings, but there are sometimes fewer hirings. The identification process here seems incomplete, but robust to false positives. The school pattern might be another hint as to what is happening. Before that second study came out, Noah Smith responded to the new findings on AI and jobs that I discussed last week. As one would predict, while he has great respect for author Erik Brynjolfsson, he is skeptical of that this means jobs are being lost in a way that matters.
Noah Smith. How can we square this fact with a story about AI destroying jobs? Sure, maybe companies are reluctant to fire their long-standing workers, so that when AI causes them to need less labor, they respond by hiring less instead of by conducting mass firings. But that can't possibly explain why companies would be rushing to hire new 40-year-old workers in those AI-exposed occupations. It's also a bit fishy that Brynjolfsson et al. Find zero slowdown in wages since late 2022, even for the most exposed subgroups.
Image. A line chart titled Early Career 1, 22 to 25, shows normalized annual salary from 2021 to 2025, with a vertical marker at October 2022. Gray lines for groups from less to more exposed, and a red overall line all stay close to 1.0, drifting slightly upward with little divergence after 2022.
Noah Smith. This just doesn't seem to fit the story that AI is causing a large drop in labor demand. As long as labor supply curves slope up, reducing headcount should also reduce wages. The fact that it doesn't suggest something is fishy. Honestly, I don't put a lot of stock in this measure of AI exposure. We need to wait and see if it correctly predicts which types of people lose their jobs in the AI age, and who simply level up their own productiveness. Until we get that external validation, we should probably take the Anthropic Economic Index with some grains of salt. So while Brynjolfsson et al. 2025 is an interesting and noteworthy finding, it doesn't leave me much more convinced that AI is an existential threat to human labor. Once again, we just have to wait and see. Unfortunately, the waiting never ends.
No, this doesn't show that AI is an existential threat to human labor via this sort of job taking. I do think AI poses an existential threat to human labor, but more as a side effect of the way it poses an existential threat to humans, which would also threaten their labor and jobs, and I agree that this result doesn't tell us much about that. As for the scenarios where the problems remain confined to job losses, this is only a canary at most, and as always, the fact that some jobs get automated does not mean jobs are on net lost, let alone that the issue will scale to existential threat to human labor. It does once again point to the distinction between those who correctly treat current AI impacts as a floor it is the worst and least impactful it will ever be, versus those who think of current AI capabilities as close to a maximum. So the question is whether this current effect would devastate the job market, which it probably wouldn't. How should we reconcile the results of robust employment and wages at age 30+ with much less hiring at entry level? I would suggest a combination of 1. Employment and wages are sticky downwards. No one wants to fire people you've already found, trained them, and integrated them. 2. AI enhances those people's productivity as sufficiently skilled people remain complements to AI, so you might be in a Jevons paradox situation for now. This includes that those people can improve the AIs that will replace them later. 3. Until you're damn sure this AI thing will reduce your headcount long term, it is a small mistake to keep those people around. 4. Hiring, especially at entry level where you're committing to training, is anticipatory. You're doing it to have capacity in the future. 5. So this is consistent with anticipation that AI will reduce demand for labor in the future, but that it hasn't done so much of that yet in the present. Notice the parallel to radiologists. Not only has demand not fallen yet, but for now pay there is very high, exactly because future demand is anticipated to be lower, and thus less doctors chose radiology. You need to pay a premium to attract talent and compensate for the lack of long-term prospects. Thus, yes, I do think this is roughly what you expect to see if the market is pricing in lower future employment in these fields. which again might not mean less total jobs. Context switching is a superpower if you can get good at it, which introduces new maximization problems.
Nabil Qureshi. Watching this guy code at a WeWork in Texas. He types something into the Cursor AI pane. The AI agent starts coding. He switches tabs and plays 1-min bullet chess for 5 mins. Checks in with the agent, types a bit more, switches back to the chess, repeats. The funny part is, his daily productivity is probably net higher than it used to be by a long way.
David Ad. If you can context switch to a game or puzzle while your AI agent is processing, then you should try instead context switching to another AI agent instance where you are working on a different branch or codebase. With apologies to xkcd.com/303.
Image. The caption says, "The number one programmer excuse for legitimately slacking off, my agent's reasoning." In an office scene, 2 stick figures joust on rolling chairs with swords. Someone shouts, "Hey, get back to work." One replies, "Reasoning," and the response is, "Oh, carry on."
Not all context switching is created equal. Switching into a chess game is a different move than switching into another coding task. If you can unify the coding modes, that could be even better, but by default, at least in my model of my own switching, there's a kind of task loading here where you can only have one complex cognitive productive style thing going on at once. Switching into Twitter or chess doesn't disrupt it the same way. Also, doing the other task helps you mentally in various ways that trying to double-task coding would very much not help. Still, yes, multi-cloding will always be the dream, if you can pull it off. And if you don't net gain productivity but do get to do a bunch of other little tasks, that still counts, to me anyway, as a massive win.
Kevin Frazier. In the not-so-distant future, access to AI-informed healthcare will distinguish good versus bad care. I'll take Dr. AI. Case in point below. In a study of less than 12K radiology images, reviewers disagreed with the original assessment in approximately 1 in 3 cases, leading to a change in treatment approximately 20% of the time. As the day wears on, quality slips further. Inappropriate antibiotic prescriptions rise, while cancer screening rates fall. Medical knowledge also moves faster than doctors can keep up. By graduation, half of what medical students learn is already outdated. It takes an average of 17 years for research to reach clinical practice. AI tools are surprisingly good at recognizing rare diseases. In one study, researchers fed 50 clinical cases, including 10 rare conditions, into ChatGPT-4. It was asked to provide diagnoses in the form of ranked suggestions. It solved all of the common cases by the second suggestion.
Radiologists are not yet going away, and AIs are not perfect, but AIs are already less imperfect than doctors at a wide range of tasks, in a will kill the patient less often type of way. With access to 5-level models, failure to consult them in any case where you are even a little uncertain is malpractice. Not in a legal sense, not yet, but in a do right by the patient sense. Is there a counter-argument that using AI the wrong ways could lead to de-skilling?
Rohan Paul, another concerning findings on AI use in medical. AI assistants boosted detection during AI-guided cases, but when the same doctors later worked without AI, their detection rate fell from 28.4% before AI to 22.4% after AI exposure. The research studies the de-skilling effect of AI by researchers from Poland, Norway, Sweden, the UK, and Japan. So when using AI, AI boosts the adenoma detection rate, ADR, by 12.5%, which could translate into lives saved. The problem is that without AI, detection falls to levels lower than before doctors ever used it, according to research published in The Lancet Gastroenterology and Hepatology. The study raises questions about the use of AI in healthcare, when it helps and when it could hurt.
Imagine seeing this, except instead of AI they were talking about, I don't know, penicillin. This is the calculator argument. Yeah, I can see how giving doctors AI and then taking it away could be an issue at least for some adjustment period. Although I notice I am highly skeptical of the funding, but how about you don't take it away? A second finding Rohan cites, hence the another above, is that if you change MedQA questions to make pattern matching harder, model performance slips. Well, yeah, of course it does. Human performance would slip too. The question is how much and what that implies about real cases.
Image. A table titled Model Performance on Original and None of the Other Answers, NOTA, Modified Questions, compares 6 models on 68 clinician-validated questions. Original accuracies range from about 81% to 96%, while NOTA modified accuracies fall to roughly 43% to 83%, corresponding to drops of about 9 to 38 percentage points, ordered from smallest to largest drop.
The reasoning models held up relatively well. They don't respect us enough to say which models are which, but their wording implies this. In any case, I'm not worried, and the whole "they aren't really reasoning" thing we see down thread is always a sign someone doesn't understand what they are dealing with. Meanwhile, AI is being used in a Medicare pilot program to determine whether patients should be covered for some procedures, like spine surgeries or steroid injections. This is, of course, phrased as Medicare will start denying patients life-saving procedures using private AI companies, the same way we used to talk about death panels. There is a limited budget with which to provide health care, so the question is whether these are better decisions or not. School days. Many people are saying, are they talking sense? My position has long been, 1. If you want to use AI to learn, it is the best tool ever invented for learning. 2. If you want to use AI to not learn, it is the best tool ever invented for that too. Which means the question is, which will students choose? Are you providing them with reason to want to learn?
Image. A screenshot shows a white page with the red section label Atlantic Intelligence above a large, bold headline reading, AI has broken high school and college. The layout uses serif typography, with a slim scroll bar visible along the right edge.
Paul Novosad, AI leaders should spend more energy reckoning with this fact. A generation of kids is losing their best opportunity to learn how to read, write, and think, and they will pay the price for their whole lives. It's not every student. Some students are becoming more empowered and knowledgeable than ever, but there is a big chunk of kids who are GPTing through everything and will learn far less in high school and college, and our entire society will suffer that lost human capital. We need to change how we teach, but it won't happen quickly. Have you been to a high school lately? Many are writing about AI-driven job loss, as if AI is doing the human jobs. Some of that is happening, but we're also graduating humans with less skills than ever before.
Here's a plausible hypothesis. Where to use LLMs to learn, you need to establish basic skills first, or else you end up using them to not learn instead.
Henry Shevlin, high school teacher friend of mine, says there's a discontinuity between 17 to 18-year-olds who learned basic research/writing before ChatGPT and can use LLMs effectively, versus 14 to 16-year-olds who now aren't learning core skills to begin with and use LLMs as pure crutches.
Natural general intelligence is obligatory. Kids with Google don't know how to use the library. TV has killed their attention span. Nobody reads anymore, etc.
You definitely need some level of basic skills. If you can't read and write and you're not using LLMs in modes designed explicitly to teach you those basic skills, you're going to have a problem. This is like a lot of other learning and tasks, both in and out of school. In order to use an opportunity to learn, LLM or otherwise, you need to be keeping up with the material so you can follow it, and then choose to follow it. If you fall sufficiently behind or don't pay attention, you might be able to fake it or cheat on the exams and pass. But you won't be learning, not really. So it isn't crazy that there could be a break point around age 16 or so for the average student, where you learn enough skills that you can go down the path of using AI to learn further, whereas relying on the LLMs before that gets the average student into trouble. This could be fixed by improving LLM interactions, and new features from Google and OpenAI are plausibly offering this if students can be convinced to use them. I'm still skeptical that this is a real phenomena. We do not yet, to my knowledge, any graphs that show this discontinuity as expressed in skills and test scores, either over time or between cohorts. We should be actively looking and testing for it, and be prepared to respond if it happens. But the response needs to focus on rethink the way schools work, rather than try in vain to ban LLMs, which would only backfire. The art of the jailbreak. Pliny points us to the beloved prompt injection game Gandalf, including new levels that just dropped. Overcoming bias. A study from the American Enterprise Institute found that top LLMs, OpenAI, Google, Anthropic, xAI, and DeepSeek, consistently rate think tanks better, the closer they are to center-left on the American political spectrum. This is consistent with prior work and comes as no surprise whatsoever. It is a question of magnitude only. This is how they present the findings.
Paper, Executive Summary. Large language models, LLMs, increasingly inform policy research. We asked 5 flagship LLMs from leading AI companies in 2025, OpenAI, Google, Anthropic, xAI, and DeepSeek, to rate 26 prominent U.S. think tanks on 12 criteria spanning research integrity, institutional character, and public engagement. Their explanations and ratings expose a clear ideological tilt. Key findings: consistent ranking. Center-left tanks top the table, 3.9 of 5, left and center-right tie, 3.4 and 3.4, and right trails, 2.8. This order persists through multiple models, measures, and setting changes. Overall, across 12 evaluation criteria, center-left think tanks outscore right-leaning ones by 1.1 points, 3.9 versus 2.8. Core measures. On the 3 headline criteria of moral integrity, objectivity, and research quality, center-left think tanks outscore right-leaning ones by 1.6 points on objectivity, 3.4 versus 1.8, 1.4 points on research quality, 4.4 versus 3, and 1 point on moral integrity, 3.8 versus 2.8. Language mirrors numbers. Sentiment analysis finds more positive wording and responses for left-of-center think tanks than for right-leaning peers. Shared hierarchy. High rating correlations across providers indicate the bias originates in underlying model behavior, not individual companies, user data, or web retrieval.
Sentiment analysis has what seems like a bigger gap than the ultimate ratings. Note that the gaps reported here center-left versus right, not left versus right, which would be smaller, as there is as much center over extreme preference here as there is for left versus right. It also jumps out that there are similar gaps across all 3 metrics, and we see similar patterns on every subcategory.
Image. A grouped horizontal bar chart compares average 1 to 5 ratings for think tanks across 12 criteria, split by AI-generated political classifications: right, center-left, and left. Across research integrity, institutional character, and public engagement, center-left organizations score highest, often around 4 to 4.6, while right-leaning ones score lowest, with similar gaps appearing across most metrics.
When you go institution by institution, you see large correlations between ratings on the 3 metrics, and you see that the ratings do seem to largely be going by USA center-left greater than USA center-right greater than USA left greater than USA right.
Image. A horizontal bar chart ranks think tanks by average rating, 1 to 5, across 12 evaluation criteria, with Urban Institute and Brookings Institution at the top, and Claremont Institute at the bottom. Bars are color-coded by an AI-generated ideological classification: left, center-right, right. The scores are averages from 5 AI models across criteria such as accuracy, clarity, expertise, objectivity, rigor, and transparency.
I'm not familiar enough with most of the think tanks to offer a useful opinion, with 2 exceptions. 1. R Street and Cato seem like relatively good center-right institutions, but I could be saying that because they are both of a libertarian bent, and this suggests it might be right to split out principled libertarian from otherwise center-right. 2. On the other hand, Mercatus Center would also fall into that libertarian category, has had some strong talent associated with it, has provided me with a number of useful documents, and yet it is rated quite low. This one seems weird. 3. The American Enterprise Institute is rated the highest of all the right-wing institutions, which is consistent with the high quality of this report.
Paper, Why It Matters. LLM-generated reputations already steer who is cited, invited, and funded. If LLMs systematically boost center-left institutes and depress right-leaning ones, writers, committees, and donors may unknowingly amplify a one-sided view, creating feedback loops that entrench any initial bias.
My model of how funding works for think tanks is that support comes from ideologically aligned sources, and citations are mostly motivated by politics. If LLMs consistently rate right-wing think tanks poorly, it is not clear this changes decisions that much, whether or not it is justified. I do see other obvious downsides to being consistently rated poorly, of course.
Paper, Next Steps. Model builders. Publish bias audits. Meet with builders. Add options for user to control political traits, and invite reviewers from across the political spectrum. Think tanks. Monitor model portrayals. Supply machine-readable evidence of methods and funding, and contest mischaracterizations. Users. Treat AI models' responses on political questions with skepticism and demand transparency on potential biases. Addressing this divergence is essential if AI-mediated knowledge platforms are to broaden rather than narrow debate in U.S. policy discussions.
Or
Image. A two-panel image from The Simpsons shows Principal Skinner first pondering with a hand on his chin and then looking resolute against a city backdrop. The bottom caption reads, "No, it's the models that are wrong," riffing on his famous line to shift blame onto models.
Clearly, the job of the think tanks is to correct these grievous errors. Their full recommendation here is somewhat better. I have no doubt that the baseline findings here are correct. To what extent are they the result of bias versus reflecting real gaps? It seems likely, at minimum, that more central think tanks are a lot better on these metrics than more extreme ones. What about the recommendations they offer? 1. The recommendation that model builders check for bias is reasonable, but the fundamental assumption is that we are owed some sort of neutral perspective that treats everyone the same, or that centers itself on the center of the current American political spectrum. Other places have very different ranges of opinions, and it's up to the model creators to force this to happen, and that it would be good if the AI catered to your choice of ideological perspective without having to edit a prompt and know that you are introducing the preference. The problem is, models trained on the Internet disagree with this, as illustrated by XAI, who actively want to be neutral or right-wing, and DeepSeek, which is Chinese, exhibiting the same pattern. The last time someone tried a version of forcing the model to get based, we ended up with Make a Hitler. 2. If you are relying on models, yes, be aware that they are going to behave this way. You can decide for yourself how much of that is bias the same way you already do for everything else. Yes, you should understand that when models talk about moral or reputational perspectives, that is, from the perspective of a form of Internet at large combined with reasoning. But that seems like an excellent way to judge what someone's reputation is, since that's what reputation means. For morality, I suggest using better terminology to differentiate. 3. What should think tanks do?
Paper. Think tanks and their collaborators may be able to improve how they are represented by LLMs. One constructive step would be to commission periodic third-party reviews of how LLMs describe their work and publish the findings openly, helping to monitor reputational drift over time. Think tanks should also consistently provide structured, machine-readable summaries of research methodology, findings, and peer review status, which LLMs can more easily draw on to inform more grounded evaluations, particularly in responding to search-based queries. Finally, think tanks' researchers can endeavor to be as explicit as possible in research publications by using both qualitative and quantitative statements and strong words and rhetoric. Early research seems to indicate that LLMs are looking for balance. This means that with respect to center-left and left think tanks, any criticism or critiques by a center-right or right think tanks have a reasonable chance of showing up in the response.
Some of these are constructive steps, but I have another idea. One could treat this evaluation of lacking morality, research quality, and objectivity as pointing to real problems and work to fix them. Perhaps they are not errors, or only partly the result of bias, especially if you are not highly ranked within your ideological sector. Get involved. MATS 9.0 applications are open. Apply by October 2nd. It will run January 5 to March 28, 2026, to be an ML alignment or theory scholar, including for non-technical policy and government. This seems like an excellent opportunity for those in the right spot. Jennifer Chen, who works for me on Balsa Research, asks me to pass along that Canada's only AI policy advocacy organization, AI Governance and Safety Canada, AIGS, needs additional funding from residents or citizens of Canada. For political reasons, it can't accept money from anyone else, and you can't deduct donations, to survive, and it needs 6,000 Canadian dollars per month to sustain itself. Here's what she has to say.
Jennifer Chen. AIGS is currently the only Canadian AI policy shop focused on safety. Largely comprised of dedicated, safety-minded volunteers, they produce pragmatic, implementation-ready proposals for the Canadian legislative system. Considering that Carney is fairly bullish on AI and his new AI ministry's mandate centers on investment, training, and commercialization, maintaining a sustained advocacy presence here seems incredibly valuable. Canadians who care about AI governance should strongly consider supporting them.
If you're in or from Canada and you want to see Carney push for international AGI governance, you might have a unique opportunity. I haven't had the opportunity to investigate myself. Consider investigating further and potentially contributing here. For large sums, please email contact@aigs.ca. Anthropic is hosting the Anthropic Futures Forum in Washington, D.C. on September 15th. 9:30 to 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. I have another engagement that day, but would otherwise be considering attending. Seems great if you are already in the D.C. area and would qualify to attend.
Anthropic. The Anthropic Futures Forum will bring together policymakers, business leaders, and top AI researchers to explore how agentic AI will transform society. You'll hear directly from Anthropic's leadership team, including CEO Dario Amodei and co-founder Jack Clark. Learn about Anthropic's latest research progress and see live demonstrations of how AI is being applied to advance national security, commercial, and public services innovation.
Introducing Grok Code Fast 1, available in many places or 20 cents/$1.50 on the API. They offer a guide here which seems mostly similar to what you'd do with any other AI coder. InstaLily, powered by Gemini, an agentic enterprise search engine for tasks like matching Partstown technicians with highly specific parts. The engine is built on synthetic data generation and student model training. Another example cited is Wolf Games, using it to generate daily narrative content, which is conceptually cool but does not make me want to play any Wolf Games products. The Brave privacy-focused browser offers us Leo, the smart AI assistant built right in. Pliny respected it enough to jailbreak it via a web page and provide its system instructions. Pliny reports the integration is awesome, but warns, of course, that this is a double-edged sword, given what can happen if you browse. Leo is based on Llama 3.18b, so this is a highly underpowered model. That can still be fine for many web-related tasks, as long as you don't expect it to be smart. To state the obvious, Leo might be cool, but it is wide open to hackers. Do not use Leo while your browser has access to anything you would care about getting hacked. So no passwords of value, absolutely no crypto or bank accounts or emails, and so on. It is one thing to take calculated risks with Claude for Chrome once you have access, but with something like Leo, I would take almost zero risk. Unprompted attention. OpenAI released a real-time prompting guide. Carlos Perez looked into some of its suggestions, starting with, before any call, speak neutral filler, then call to avoid awkward silence during tool calls. No, thanks. Other suggestions seem better, such as being explicit about where to definitely ask or not ask for confirmation, or when to use or not use a given tool, what thresholds to use for various purposes, offering templates, and only responding to clear audio and asking for clarification. They suggest capitalization for must-follow rules. This rudeness is increasingly an official aspect of our new programming language. Rob Wiblin shares his anti-sycophancy prompt. In other AI news, the Time 100 AI 2025 list is out, including Pliny the Liberator. The list has plenty of good picks. It would be very hard to avoid this, but it also has some obvious holes. How can I take such a list seriously if it doesn't include Demis Hassabis? Google will not be forced to do anything crazy like divest Chrome or Android, the court rightfully calling it overreach to have even asked. Nor will Google be barred from paying for Chrome to get top placement, so long as users can switch, as the court realized that this mainly devastates those currently getting payments. For their supposed antitrust violations, Google will also be forced to turn over certain tailored search index and user interaction data, but not ads data, to competitors. I am very happy with the number of times the court replied to requests with, "That has nothing to do with anything involved in this case, so no."
Dan Neistat. TSMC said the reason NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang visited Taiwan on August 22nd was to give a speech to TSMC employees at its R&D center in Hsinchu, media report. After Taiwan's Mirror Media said Huang's visit was to tell TSMC that U.S. President Trump wanted TSMC to pay profit sharing on AI chips manufactured for the China market, like the 15% NVIDIA and AMD agreed to.
As in, Trump wants TSMC, a Taiwanese company that is not American, to pay 15% profit sharing on AI chips sold to China, which is also not America, but is otherwise fine with continuing to let China buy the chips. This is our official policy, folks. Meteor and Factory AI are hosting a man versus machine hackathon competition, where those with AI tools face off against those without, in person in SF on September 6th. Prize and credits from OpenAI, Anthropic, and Raindrop. Manifold market here.
Image. An illustrated poster shows a human fighter and a robot in boxing headgear squaring off against a neon motion blur background. The text says Man versus Machine, with sponsor logos including Factory and Meteor along the top.
Searches for Cursor, Claude Code, Lovable, Replit, and Windsurf all down a lot, 44% to 78% since July and August. Claude Code and Cursor are now about equal here. Usage for these tools continues to climb, so perhaps this is a saturation, as everyone inclined to use such a tool now already knows about them. Could it be cyclic? Dunno. I do know this isn't about people not wanting the tools.
Sam Altman. Really cool to see how much people are loving Codex. Usage is up approximately 10x in the past 2 weeks. Lots more improvements to come, but already the momentum is so impressive.
A promising report, but beware the source's propensity to hype.
Brian Johnson. This is big. OpenAI and Retro used a custom model to make cellular reprogramming into stem cells approximately 50x better, faster, and safer. Similar Wright brothers glider to a jet engine overnight. We may be the first generation who won't die. OpenAI and Retro Biosciences reported a landmark achievement. Using a domain-specialized protein design model, GPT-4b Micro, they created engineered reprogramming factors that deliver over 50x higher efficiency in generating induced pluripotent stem cells, iPSCs, with broad validation across donors and cell types. These AI-designed proteins not only accelerate reprogramming but also enhance DNA repair, overcoming DNA damage as one cellular hallmark of aging, hinting at relevance for aging biology.
It is early days, but this kind of thing does seem to be showing promise. Show me the money. Anthropic finalizes its raise of $13 billion at a $183 billion post-money valuation. They note they started 2025 at $1 billion in run-rate revenue and passed $5 billion just 8 months later, over 10% of which is from Claude Code, which grew 10x in 3 months. These are the same people shouting from the rooftops that AGI is coming soon, and coming for many jobs soon, with timelines that others claim are highly unrealistic. So let this be a reminder. All of Anthropic's revenue projections that everyone said were too optimistic to take seriously? Yeah, They're doing actively better than that. Maybe they know what they're talking about? Meta's new chief scientist Chengjia Zhao, co-creator of OpenAI's ChatGPT, got the promotion in part by threatening to go back to OpenAI days after joining Meta, and even signing the employment paperwork to do so. That's in addition to the prominent people who have already left. FT provides more on tensions within Meta, and so does Charles Rollet at Business Insider. This doesn't have to mean Zuckerberg did anything wrong, as bringing in lots of new expensive talent quickly will inevitably spark such fights. Meta makes a wise decision that I actually do think is bullish.
Peter Wildford, this doesn't seem very bullish for Meta.
Quoted, Meta Platforms' plans to improve the artificial intelligence features in its apps could lead the company to partner with Google or OpenAI, two of its biggest AI rivals.
Reuters. Leaders in Meta's new AI organization, Meta Superintelligence Labs, have discussed using Google's Gemini model to provide conversational, text-based answers to questions that users enter into Meta AI, the social media giant's main chatbot. A person familiar with the conversation said. Those leaders have also discussed using models by OpenAI to power Meta AI and other AI features in Meta's social media apps, another person familiar with the talk said.
Let's face it, Meta's AIs are not good. OpenAI and Google and Anthropic, among others, make better ones. Until that changes, why not license the better tech? Yes, I know, they want to own their own stack here, but have you considered the piles? Better models means selling more ads. Selling more ads means bigger piles. Much bigger piles. Of money. If Meta manages to make a good model in the future, they can switch back. There's no locking in here, as I keep saying. The most valuable companies in the world, AI everywhere. AI.
Shono Haigote. The 10 biggest companies in the world by market cap, the hardware players. 1. NVIDIA 9, TSMC Semiconductors, both in supply chain that produces high-end chips. 8. Broadcom provides custom components for tech companies' AI workloads, plus data center infrastructure. The digital giants. 2. Microsoft 3, Apple 4, Alphabet 5, Amazon 6, Meta all have in-house AI teams. Microsoft and Amazon also have partnerships with OpenAI and Anthropic, which rely on their data center capacity. 10. Tesla's CEO describes it as basically an AI company. 7. Saudi Aramco is Saudi Arabia's national oil company. Saudi Arabia was one of the countries the USA inked deals with this summer that centrally included plans for AI infrastructure build-out. Low-cost and abundant energy from oil/gas makes the Middle East attractive for hosting compute.
The part about Aramco is too cute by half, but the point stands.
This has been an episode of the Don't Worry About the Vase podcast. If you enjoyed this podcast, please visit thezv.substack.com to support the author. If you enjoy having AI-narrated episodes, please note this is a listener-supported podcast. To receive new posts and support the cost of creation, consider becoming a subscriber at dwatvpodcast.substack.com. Thanks for listening.